All right. Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming to today's Tuesday with CKLS. Today we have Michael Adamyk. He is going to go over Koha best practices. Michael, take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Adamyk, and I am the CKLS Library Technology Manager. One of the main roles that I have is the Pathfinder Central Manager, which is the shared catalog. And I just wanted to share with you some tips, some best practices, and some things. Some of you may already know about some of these, some of you may not, and we'll just go through it. I also want you to know that I want this to be a time when you can ask questions as well. Some of the improvements that we've had over the last year were recommended or asked about by librarians. And so if you've got a question as we're going through something and you think, I wish the catalog could do this, or is there a way to do this? Please ask that question in the chat and we will address it. If it's not too long, I'll answer it on screen. And if it's a bit more of an involved answer, I may ask you to stay on after the meeting, or I'll get in touch with you directly. But I just want you to know that I want you to interact with us as well if you've got any questions. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is, for some of you, you've probably heard the words Koha and the words Pathfinder Central. And you may wonder, why do we have these two different words for what's pretty much the same thing? And if you're wondering how to tell them apart, in practice, the two are really pretty much the same thing. Sometimes we'll use Koha or Pathfinder Central interchangeably. If you want to get really technical, Koha is the name of the software, and Pathfinder Central is the name of our own catalog. It's got its own special settings, and that's just basically the way to tell them apart. But in practice, we use them interchangeably. I'm going to share my screen here real fast. Here we go. So I'm on the what we call a test server right now. It's not the exact thing that we're using because I want to protect patrons' privacy. If for some reason something shows up that is private information about a patron, we will block that out in the recording because the privacy is very important. But one thing that's really, really important, and I call it the golden rule of Pathfinder, is if you've ever got something that comes across your desk and you have no idea what to do with it, the number one rule is, when in doubt, check it in. If you check in a book that's got a hold on it, Pathfinder will tell you who's got the hold on it and whether you need to send it away or keep it for one of your patrons. If it's a book that needs to be checked in, it will check it in for you. And if it's a book that's just been sitting on a shelf somewhere and nobody's checked it out and it's just sitting around, it will record that you have the book in your hands so that later on you can see, oh, I scanned the book at this time. So when in doubt, check something in, and usually that will tell you exactly what to do with it, even if it's been sitting on your desk for 6 months. The number two rule, which is kind of like the silver rule, is when you check something in, always make sure that you're looking at the screen, because the scanner will sometimes beep and it may not scan the barcode fully, or maybe you didn't have the cursor in the right place to scan it in, to check it in. But if you're looking at the screen, you can see that it was scanned properly. And if there's a pop-up message or anything like that that's attached, so for example, a hold, or the item has been missing, you can see that on the screen, whereas you may not hear a noise for that. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the Pathfinder Central Policies and Annual Agreement. And most of you are already familiar with this. We generally send the document out through the courier every year. And this is what it looks like. It's just a packet of papers, and it's got
Michael, we can just see your test server.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yep.
Ooh.
There it is.
It's got a piece of paper and it's got the Pathfinder Central logo on it. And we we haven't sent out any of those for 2021. During this year, we were considering the possibility of making the Pathfinder Central Agreement be signed every few years instead of every year. And a couple of weeks ago, we met with the Pathfinder Central Trailblazers, and we decided that it is helpful to have that done annually in order to remind the new board members on the board what exactly the Pathfinder Central Agreement is and why it's important. And so we won't have one for 2021. The signed form from 2020 is still in effect. And at the beginning of next year, you will be getting a form in the courier with a packet of papers. And we ask that you go through that individually as the director, and you also put it in your board packet for the next board meeting so that your board members can read through the agreement and understand what it means. For those of you who are already familiar with it, all of the changes from the previous form will be marked so that you can see what exactly has changed. And then we ask that you discuss that at a board meeting. We ask that the board vote to approve it for, in this case, it will be the year 2022. And then the form does need to be signed by both the librarian and the board president, and then sent back to us here at CKLS. Also attached to that is the privacy and confidentiality statement that is also sent out with the agreement form. And that is very, very important. As you all know, we take privacy and confidentiality of our patrons here very, very seriously. And CKLS is the entity that pays for the hosting and the management of Pathfinder Central. And so we are responsible for protecting that privacy of the patrons that are in the shared catalog. And so we do require that all library directors sign the privacy and confidentiality statement when it's sent out every year. As the library director, it's your responsibility to make sure that all of your staff members and your volunteers, any board members who have access to the shared catalog, also sign and understand that agreement. We don't ask you to send all of those to us. That's for you to collect as the director, but we do need this director's signed copy. Does anybody have any questions about the annual agreement or any of that?
There is a question in the chat. Are extra copies sent for board members, or do we need to make extra copies for their packets?
So when we're sending out the packets, we generally send one copy, but I also have electronic copies available. So if you need to print copies for your board members, please let me know. And I will send you a link to the electronic file.
Okay, and that's the only question I see.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here for a minute, and there is just a quick tip that I wanted to share with you. If you've ever logged into your staff account, and you'll notice that this often happens on monitors that are not widescreen. I'm going to have to stop sharing here for a second and adjust the size. Okay, if you've got a monitor that's a little bit more narrow, you may notice that there is text that overlaps up here, which makes it difficult for you to click on some of those things. There is a way that I can make a setting to fix that. So if you have that problem on any of your computers, please let me know, and I can put in some coding that will change it for your library so that it displays in a way that's much easier to read and to click on. Okay, move that back out. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about circulation rules. And this is something that you are not able to go in and view or change directly, but I just want to show you what it looks like and explain a little bit about how they work, because that's important for your library. Each individual library can have its own circulation rules set up. And This is what they look like. You can have circulation rules set up specifically for certain patron categories and specifically for certain item types. And then you can decide how many checkouts, how long it gets checked out for, and renewals and all of that. Some of you who are newer to your libraries may not be aware of what your library circulation rules actually are. And if that's the case, please email me. I have a report that I created that you can run to see exactly what your library circulation rules are. And starting next year, I'm going to be sending out circulation rules to each individual library annually so that you can see exactly what is set at your library and whether that's worth revisiting or changing. In general, the fewer circulation rules we have for your library, the better, because once we start adding a lot, they start interacting with each other and it can become very complicated. And so that's how those work. If you've got any questions about those, please contact me. I did want to ask some of the consultants to chime in a bit and share a bit about the importance of having circulation policies set at your library.
This is Gail. I just typed in the chat that I have a question about circulation rules and policies. We know that every Pathfinder library has circulation rules, but what I'm concerned is that most of us don't have library policies about our circulation rules. And so those two kind of go hand in hand. And it can be a push for us as well, since Michael's going to make sure everybody gets their circulation rules next year, for you all to send us your circulation policies so we can help align those for you, because your policies, your rules are nothing without a policy, your circulation rules. So you've got to have that policy.
And I was going to follow up, Michael, if you would share your screen again where you're at the circulation rules. I was going to make a comment on when you're cataloging items. We've been training for the last several years to when you pick an item type to be particular about the item types that you use. And one of the rules that I always say is a book is a book is a book, because if your books check out for 2 weeks, but you categorize them as HB or hardback or soft cover or trade or what have you, and your books check out for a different time than everything else, you have to have a circulation rule here for each of those item types. Now, there's going to be a change coming up, I think, in the next development where we can combine item types, so we can have Blu-rays and DVDs in the same circ rule that says you can have 5 Blu-rays or DVDs checked out at a time. But right now, if you have hardback item types and book item types and softcover item types, you would need a circulation rule for all of them, or you're gonna have issues. They're not all going to check out the same, and it causes a mess. So unless there's a very specific need for you to know that this is a hardback or a softcover, just categorize the book as a book, because it's going to help with your circulation rules.
This is Gail, and that goes along with modern cataloging practices. We used to, catalogers would recommend to be very specific about that item type. Is this a hardcover or a soft cover or a paperback or a juvenile paperback? And now it's what you see is what you get. You're holding a book, and
Yeah.
so that's a big change. So when that improvement comes along where we can merge those item types, we'll be reaching out to some of you to kind of make that happen.
So make sure we do that correctly. Yeah. And those format descriptions, they're not lost. They're just held differently in the catalog record. In your catalog record, it'll say format, and then it'll say what the format is. But for the item type, that is specific for that item, and that's how your circulation rules are collected. So if it's a junior book, the collection or the shelving location would indicate that it's juvenile, but the item type would still just be book. I do have a question in the chat. It's about circulation history. Are you going to go to circulation history at any point, Michael, or would you like to cover that now?
Yeah, we can talk about that now.
Okay.
What is the specifically?
So there are some older or perhaps just not tech savvy patrons that are upset that their history is not automatically saved. Is there a way to work around for these patrons, or are they just out of luck? So you as a librarian can train your patron how to log into their patron side. This may be the only time they ever get into the patron side, but when they're there, you're going to show them what their username is, which is their library card number. What their password is what you set up for them. And then once you're in, you can show them how to turn on their circulation history, and you can show them how to change their password. This might be the only time they use it, but that might be the workaround. Because we take privacy so seriously, the default is to opt in to save your patron history, and that's something your patron must decide for themselves. And that is not going to change, because it's one of those things where then the patron is in control.
And it's important to note that there is actually there is no way in the software to go in and change a patron's privacy setting from the staff account. It simply won't allow you to do that.
Mhm.
There's no way to actually do that.
You'd have to do it from the patron side. So there's question about shelving location, and if you have to use the nonfiction shelving location or have to use the 100s, or whatever Dewey number you're using. That is up to your library. I recommend just using nonfiction. Your call number or your spine label is going to tell you where that is, but that is a library decision. If you want to use the 100 in your shelving location, or if you want to use just nonfiction, that is up to you.
And if you want to make that change, please contact me and I can definitely help you with that. If you want to make any changes with the shelving locations.
This is Gail. If you look at the main purpose of a catalog is to help point people other than library staff to something that they're looking for. And so if you look at it like a roadmap, the shelving location, if it's nonfiction, it points you to the right part of the library. And then your call number is going to point you to the specific location within nonfiction. Now, if you're a big library like Wichita, it makes sense to go shelving location would be in the nonfiction 100s, because they're going to have row after row after row. But for most all of us, we might be lucky to have 100 books in the 100s section. And so that works well enough because it's good wayfinding.
I always think of it that if you look at an envelope and you look at somebody's address, you have the city, which would be your library that you see in the catalog. And then you have your next address line, which would be your shelving location. And then your spine label is the exact one, or your apartment number. So your shelving or your spine label, also called a call number, should be the one that tells you where to find that exact book. Now, of course, your title is going to help narrow it down, because if it's James Patterson, your spine label is just going to say Fick Patterson, James, and then they have to know to find that title. So your title would be like who it's to, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then the next one is your spine label, and then your street address, and then your library. There is a comment about formats and item types. One library prefers to use the item types to help them find the books on their shelves, and that's a way to do it, but you are making your catalog system work harder for you. It's not the way it's designed, but if that's the way it works for you, that's okay. You have a specific need for that item type, but I'm going to continue to say that a book is a book is a book, and for Koha to work the best for you, a book is a book is a book.
And I have one more thing to say about that is, one of the things that we have to consider is not just what's convenient for us, but what's convenient for the next people who are going to work in the library once we are gone. What we find is that very often when there's a new librarian who comes in, they can't make heads or tails of things, and they ask us for help, and we go back to what is very basic. This is, what are you holding? It's a book. And we We just keep it really basic so that they can learn what they're doing and how to find things in the library as well.
Thank you. And I do have another question. I'm gonna ask it, and then I'll ask for a little bit of clarification. If the library is a hot mess where every librarian has used a different system, how do we fix the hot mess? Do we have to go through manually and correct them, or correct them as they come? So I'm not sure if the shelving location is a hot mess, or the spine labels, or both. But there is batch item modification that can change your spine label, or not your spine labels, that could change your shelving location all in one go, so you don't have to do those one by one. For your spines, I don't know if I'd recommend a retroactive one. What I would do is I would work with Missy, or I'm sorry, Liz, she's the one that helps with your spine labels, and make sure that CKLS is doing the spine labels the way you want them. And then you keep the same format that you've asked with CKLS to do it.
And
Because then all your new books coming forward, they're going to come from CKLS the way you want them, and then you'll be using the same format as well. And so then from this point forward, you'll be the same. If you have so much time on your hands that yes, you want to do a spine label retroactive redo, we can help you plan that and see if there's an easy button and help you use that. But I'm not sure that you or your board are going to find that's worth your time.
And this is Gail. Mary Beth implied it, but the very first thing to do is call to talk to CKLS, and we're going to come up and take a look, and we're going to offer suggestions, and we're going to help you figure out the easiest way to standardize things or fix them, or bring a fire extinguisher for the hot mess that's going on there. But I'm positive that what you're seeing as a hot mess, we've seen worse, and we've helped libraries fix it.
This is Patty. I might add that if you're looking at a spine label redo, it might be time to do a weed of that section before you start on spine label redo, because there are a lot of things you may discover that you don't need when you're looking at what kind of time and work is ahead.
Yeah. And there's one more thing I wanted to share here about the circulation rules. If we take a look, you'll see that we can set separate rules for certain patron categories. And we have right here, we have a patron category for interlibrary loan, one for self-registered, and one for book club. And those make perfect sense to have separate rules for those. But you want to be very, very careful with creating different circulation rules for different patron categories, because that's where your circulation policies come in play as well, because you don't want to be showing favoritism to anyone with how your circulation rules are set up.
That's right, Michael. Adults should have the same circulation rules as children, and board members and library staff should have the same circulation rules as patrons.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to go back into the catalog, and I'm going to go back to the home screen. And sometimes when you log into your home screen, you may notice that there are some notes down here at the bottom of the screen. And we've got a couple of blue notes. They're kind of hard to see. One says patrons requesting modifications, and the other says checkout notes pending. These are going to show up if your patrons take action from when they log in on the patron side, and they either create a note on one of their checkouts, or they want to change some information in their patron account. And so we're going to take a look here first at the checkout notes pending, and this will show up. Here we can see this is the title for the item that they created a note for. And here's the note that the patron added, returned in Dropbox on October the 5th. And we can see the date and the patron that set this note. And this will show up anytime a patron adds a note to an item. Usually it's if they have a problem with an item, or if something they think is returned and it hasn't been checked in. And so you can mark this as seen, and it will no longer show up on the home screen. But please don't mark it as seen until you've contacted the patron and resolved whatever the issue is. Unfortunately, patrons are not able to add notes like this from the new patron catalog. If they want to add this kind of note, it can only be done from the old patron catalog. That's something that we hope is coming soon as a functionality in the new one. But if you see one of those show up on your home screen, that's what this is. And then we're going to take a look at the patrons requesting modifications. That will show up if a patron wants to change any of their personal account information. Then they submit a request and you have to approve it in order for the change to be made. So we'll take a look at this one. So we have, these are the fields that they want changed. Here are the old values that were in the patron account. And then we've got the new values here. So the address, we can see they've changed their address from the old to the new value. And then the title and the other phone were blank before, and the patron wants some information added into those fields. And so it's up to you to decide how you want to deal with this. You can choose to approve or deny. If you choose to ignore and click submit, it's just going to keep popping up here. So you can deny it, which means that it will remove those changes and leave the patron's account the way it is. If you approve, it will change all the old values to the new values. And you can decide whether you want to contact the patron to confirm that that is a change they wanted to make. That could be a way to get in touch with your patrons. But if you don't have time for that, you could approve anything as long as it looks like it is a legitimate change and there aren't any misspellings or anything like that. And so that's something that you can also check on if that pops up on your home screen. If you have some that pop up on your home screen and they haven't been resolved for several months, I may contact you and ask you to go in and resolve those.
I do have a question.
Sure.
It goes back to the checkout notes. Are
Okay.
the notes specific for one library, or are they seen by all libraries?
This is only going to show up at your library for your patrons. I can see all of them because I have permissions over everything, but for your library, you're only going to see your patrons. And that goes for the personal information changes as well. You will only see your patrons.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. There are also some reports that are really helpful for you as a library to run regularly. And I've created a document that shows some of the reports that you should be running on a regular basis. How often you run them is really up to you because individual libraries are different as far as what they're doing in circulation. But these are reports that help us to keep the catalog clean, and they help us to solve any circulation problems before they become big issues. So I'm going to share my screen and show you that document. I won't go through all of them because that would take some time, but I will just explain briefly what each one does. And if you, actually, I'm going to put that in the chat here. There's a link to it if you want to view the document. Okay, so most of you already know how to run reports. If you're not sure how to run reports, I've got a video on that on the YouTube channel, and I can also log me in and show you individually how to do that. So I've listed the reports. I got a link to go to the report as well as the number and the name of the report, and then recommended length of time for how often you should run this. Again, that will vary by library. And then an explanation of what the hold does and what to do with the data that you get from the report. Orphaned holds are holds that patrons from your library have placed on items, and the items that they placed on hold are no longer available for some reason. Often this happens because they placed a hold on an item that has become lost or has been missing or damaged. And so you want to check this every once in a while, because if a item gets lost or damaged and there's a hold on it, it won't actually notify you or the patron. The hold will remain there even though the item can no longer be filled.
So, Michael, do we have it listed in the Pathfinder user agreement about what a library should do if when they're going through the holds queue and they find out that their item is not on their shelves and they mark it as lost, and that's the last item available for that hold? Is there a procedure that we have on there, or?
Yes, in the Pathfinder annual agreement, it does say that if you are pulling holds for something and there's a hold that you cannot find, and there is not another library in the system that has that item that could fill the hold, you must notify the library of the patron that placed the hold in order for them to ask the patron what they want to do. They may want to request it through statewide ILL, but there is no automatic notification. And so the patron and the library will not know that that hold can no longer be filled unless you contact them.
So this report is kind of a backup in case that communication breaks down.
Yes,
But
exactly.
the library filling that hold, they can call or they can send an email, whichever works best for them, just to notify that other library.
Yes. Yep. Report number 1734, transfers from your library. This one is a good one to run at least monthly. And these are items that your library has sent out or transferred to other Pathfinder libraries, but they have not yet arrived at the destination library. You want to look for any items that are more than a few weeks late. There is a column that says days late. And the first thing you want to do is check your shelves to see if somehow those items ended up back on your shelves. And if you can't find them there, contact the library where it was sent to see if they have it, and maybe that didn't get checked in. And if neither one of you can find it, that may be something that is worth contacting Carolyn Handwork about at the courier to see if there's an issue with the courier. And at the bottom of this document, there are instructions for how to do that and how long you should wait before doing that. Report number 1666, stale holds. These are just items that other libraries patrons have placed on your items that haven't been filled yet. And so this one will show you if there's some items that for some reason, maybe they haven't been showing up on the holds queue, or you've missed them on the holds queue. And this is kind of a backup to the holds queue. So you can see if this is something I own that I need to send out to another library. If you find an item on there, please check it in and send it on to the hold. Report 1183, checked out items borrowed from other libraries. These are items that other libraries have given to you and your patrons have checked out. And if any of these items have been out and especially overdue by more than 2 months, please try and retrieve them from your patrons. Your library has the choice for how to circulate items to your patrons, whether they come from your library or from another library. However, please respect the material of other libraries by not keeping them forever, and at least making a good effort to get them back from your patrons. And if that's not possible, CKLS does have a Pathfinder ILL replacement fund that you can fill out a form for, and CKLS will consider replacing that item so that you don't have to try and retrieve it from your patron if you know it's missing.
This is Gail. Before you initiate that pill replacement form, make sure you speak with the other library, because it may be something that they don't want to have replaced. Sometimes, most of the time it is, sometimes it's not.
That communication, this is Mary Beth, that communication between all Pathfinder libraries is really important. And I know sometimes it gets really frustrating when you've been trying to get in contact with this library or get this book back. But just remember that everybody out here is your colleague and is facing the same problems you are, and is probably just as frustrated trying to get this book back as well. So always, start these interactions with grace and giving everybody the benefit of the doubt and working kindly with each other, because you're a team here. And I know that it gets really frustrating when you really want this book back. Your patron's been asking about it, and you're kind of in this weird limbo. But just give each other a little bit of grace.
Yes, absolutely. Communication is a huge important part of this. Please don't feel afraid to communicate. Just do so with grace and kindness. Report 867, home branch is different from holding branch. This shows any items that belong to your library but are located at another library. If the date last seen on those is quite a while ago, over a month ago, then it's worth you checking your library shelves to see if somehow it got returned to your library and wasn't checked in. And then if you can't find it, again, contact the home library, the other library, and maybe it got mistakenly shelved on their shelves, because that can definitely happen. And items get shelved by accident from another library. And then finally, report number 1750, expired patrons. Please do run this at least once a year. This will show you all of the patron accounts at your library that have expired. We recommend deleting expired accounts if they're more than 2 or 3 years old. That helps keep the system clean, and it helps keep private information that we don't need to be collecting from being collected. And then the final one, it's not exactly a custom report, it's the transfers to receive report. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to find that. Instead of going to the reports, you'll actually go to circulation right here. And then right here is a transfers to receive, and click on that. This will show you any transfers that are coming to your library. And it tells you the date of the transfer. And if it's more than 7 days since the transfer was made, it's considered late. And you will see a message that tells you that it is considered late by however many days. And again, this may be an opportunity for you to get in touch with the library that sent it and to check their shelves, to check your shelves, to make sure it didn't somehow get shelved. And if there are some things that did truly get lost on the courier, then that may be something to consider getting replaced through the Pathfinder ILL replacement fund, and contacting Carolyn at Northeast Kansas Library System about.
And it seems like always when we say check your shelves first, have the other library check your shelves. It's just like when a patron comes back and says that they believe they returned that book. They know they did. I always say, okay, well, we'll look here, you look at home, and it'll turn up, and then it'll get checked in, because mistakes happen. You're checking a lot of books in and outs. One may, you scanned it, but the computer was behind, whatever, mistakes happen. So just do that check for all of those. That's easy enough. And make sure you report those, if you notice it seems to be a pattern with courier items, either taking a long time to get to where they're going, or if you're like, okay, I think this batch of whatever I sent on October 1st must have gotten lost, because every library's contacted me and said, it says it's transferred, but I haven't got it yet. Those are things we need to report to Caroline, because she's going to be the one that notices trends. Now, if you still think there's a problem, you can of course contact us. We'll be contacting Caroline and work, but then we know if there's a pattern. If we hear from Otis and Bison and Lacrosse and McCracken and all those over there that they have items that were lost from October 1st, then we know that there was an issue and something happened on the courier. So it's kind of like a little bit of investigation that we have to do. And the more information we have is the better we can help find, at least figure out what happened, maybe not find the books, but at least figure out what happened.
Yep, thank you. I also wanted to share really quickly, most of you already know how to do the holds queue and to check your holds queue, but I just wanted to show you when you go to circulation, there are several options here under holds. If you click on holds to pull, that will actually show you all the holds that are from all libraries in CKLS, not necessarily just your library. So you do want to be using the holds queue, which is the top button right there. And remember that as a Pathfinder Central Library, on the Pathfinder agreement, you have agreed to check the holds queue at least once every day that you're open. So that's important to make sure that we have holds going out to patrons as quickly as possible. Okay, I'm going to open the CKLS website real fast and share with you a little bit of information about how you can find help with some questions you might have. Let's see. Okay, so if you go to the CKLS website, you may see right here under information, if you go down to CKLS resource guides, there are links to lots of different lib guides, but there is a Pathfinder Central guide right here. And if you click on that, it will take you to the Pathfinder Central lib guide. This is also where you will find the most recent copy of the Pathfinder Central Policies and Agreement. Right here at the top of the screen, we have a link so you can view the digital agreement right here in the catalog. And then there are tabs where you can see videos and print tutorials for different aspects of Pathfinder Central. We also have a CKLS YouTube page, and there are playlists and videos, instructional videos on there as well. And that is, what is the name of the CKL Central Kansas Library System? I believe is the name of the YouTube page.
I will find the link and put it in the chat.
Thanks. Another quick tip here, it's kind of a silly thing, but something that I love. It's not necessarily a Koha or Pathfinder tip, but if you're ever on a website and you want to open a link in a new tab, sometimes if you click on a link, it will automatically open a new tab, and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how it's set up. So in this case, let's say I want to open the annual agreement on another tab and keep working on this page as well. If I click it, it's just going to take me directly to that page, and I'll have to go back to see that other page. But if you hold down the control key on your keyboard and then click on a link, it will always open it in a new tab, no matter how the website is set up. And that's something that it's small, but it's something that I use a lot. Okay. And that is pretty much everything I have to cover. Are there any questions about anything at all? Any?
Maybe not anything at all. We'll narrow it to Pathfinder library circulation question.
Poor Michael hasn't learned that part yet.
Luckily, our librarians are very good, and when I say anything at all, they know that library related. But if you ask me about stock trading, I'm not going to be able to help you with that. Sorry.
Or at least you probably wouldn't want our help with that, at least.
I'm
Yeah.
not even going to say I'm going to find out about that and get back to you, not on stock trading.
And that does remind me, if you ever have a question about anything library related, please contact us. It doesn't matter if you're not sure which one of us is going to be answering the question. That comes up a lot with Andy and I. People can kind of get us confused, but please don't ever hesitate to contact us. We're happy to answer the question if we can, and get in touch with the CKLS staff member who can answer the question if necessary.
And that's email or phone call. Just, give your best guess. And if it's not the right person, we'll make sure you get in contact with the person you need to. Also, if you call us and you get our voicemail, please leave at least your name and number and how urgent your call is, because voicemails are forwarded onto our email, which we can then see on the road wherever we are. We do not have a call log, so we don't know if you called and didn't leave a message. We don't know that you've called. So please, please, please leave that voicemail. That's going to help us know how urgent it is, so we know how much time we need to set aside to call you, but also what the issue is and who called us. So we appreciate that. I do see Amy has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So Amy from Otis was wondering, when searching for an item in a series like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone or Frozen 2, there seems to be a lag. Currently searching for Frozen 2 and has been searching for almost 5 minutes. That is not something that should be happening. So please get in touch with me if you ever notice that, and I will write that down to follow up with you about that issue.
When is the last time you cleared your browser cache, Amy? I would try that first. And I'm assuming you're searching through the staff side, not the patron side, because it may be easier actually to search on the patron side the way it's set up using the new patron layout. Okay, Harry Potter. Oh no, you wanted Frozen 2. I'm gonna search for Frozen 2. And Pam says, and speak slowly and clearly. I've received many voicemail messages that I just can't understand. Of course, I really don't mind that if the caller is a salesperson. Yes, as you know, I speak very fast, especially when I'm nervous. And so that's one I really struggle with, but I do try to at least slow down enough to give you my phone number. But yes, please, name, phone number, And if it's urgent, if you want to tell us what the issue is, that's a bonus, but I'm not going to require it. That just lets us know, do I need to do some prep work before I call you, or can I give you a cold call and get it resolved in a couple minutes?
Sure, this is Gail. Because I'm the library director as well, I'm usually often here on Fridays, where your CKLS people might have met their 40 hours and they might not be here on Friday. Many is the Friday that I get an email forwarded to me asking me to take care of something because there was a voicemail left for them and they can't fix it. And so they're going to send it on to me. It kind of doesn't matter where your information comes from. We want to make sure you get the answers that you need. So voicemail.
And I am testing a search for Frozen 2 as well, Amy. And yes, it is taking some time. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll do some investigating and we'll probably call you and see what we can figure out.
Thank you for sharing that, Amy. It's always helpful when, if you have ever not sure if you should ask about something, please just contact me. I'm always happy to answer any questions and look into whatever might be going on.
Awkward emails are also acceptable.
And we're going to ask for specifics. So if you have those, book title, patron name, anything that can help us narrow down the issue, that's going to be very helpful. Because sometimes it may be very specific item related, or it may be more of a general thing. But if we can have those details, we're going to be able to do better investigating on your behalf.
Yes. Okay.
Any other questions? Screenshots are wonderful. So if there are no questions, can we assume that all things Pathfinder are just going swimmingly in your libraries? Pam's giving a yes look. Wow.
I want to say that everything moves at warp speed.
Ooh.
It seems like, we're
Nice.
still, no, I don't always move at warp speed. So, but anyway, things are going well.
Good. It's important to know that because we pay Bywater quite a lot of money every year to help us solve problems and to keep the catalog running quickly and efficiently. And if there's a big lag regularly, that's something that they need to fuss with on their end, and they can and they have. They may move you to a different server, or there's just all different kinds of things that they can do. They want the catalog to run efficiently as well and quickly. So thank you, Cheryl. Did everybody see what Michael sent out about the Pathfinder Trailblazers? And if you have any questions about that, this is a great time to talk about those as well.
That is weird, Amy. So she says that sometimes checking in or out items, sometimes you scan the barcode and then the Pathfinder comes back and says nothing found. Next time that happens, write down either the barcode or the title and give us a shout out, because we're going to be able to do some investigating. We also have access to record logs. So should it have been deleted since 5 minutes ago when you scanned it the first time, we can find those, or we'll be able to do some investigation. So yeah, that's where we need the barcode, title, something to help us find that specific record, and then deep dive into the background, or at least send it on to Bywater and let them handle it.
Yeah. I have something positive to say. I was, Jewel has a ghost in her scanner too.
Oh,
I was visiting
yes.
with the other system administrators. Yes, you do. You let Michael know. I was visiting with the other system administrators, and 2 of those systems have just hired a consultant full-time to do nothing but catalog cleanup. And I wanted to give kudos to all of the Pathfinder libraries and the CKLS staff and to all of you, especially who are on here, for being careful about the catalog records you pull in, and for reporting these mistakes that you see, and reporting records that seem to be wrong, or these weird things. Our catalog is actually in exceptional shape. We decided a number of years ago to keep working on cleanup tasks, and it's really paid off. They're paying $40,000 a year, and it's going to take about 4 years at least for somebody to clean those things up. And we've sort of shared that with everyone, and we've saved our taxpayers a lot of money. And I just really want to thank you for that. It was really great to be able to brag.
And that Gail's comment about a record cleanup reminded me of something I wanted to say about reports. And that is, we know we have a lot of reports and we know they're confusing. So if it's easiest for you to just contact Michael or me and say, I need a report that does X, and then we send you a link, we can do that.
Yes.
We may not put that on the top of our priorities, but we will get back to you as quick, as we can. But that is a legitimate thing to do. Also use that keyword search in the reports. If you know, okay, I want to know about checkouts, search checkouts, and that
Yes.
should help you. But we're happy to direct you on those because we know it's confusing.
Because sometimes the reports are hard to know exactly what they do. And so I answer a question about that probably at least once a week. A person's just looking for a report and they need to know which one to run, and I can definitely find that for you.
Michael is a whiz at obscure reports that no one else would even care about. Yeah,
He is
so
great at that.
he'll be able to find it. And if we don't have a report, then we might be able to build you one. So
Right.
if we don't have it, there'll be follow-up questions. Okay, what are you looking for? What does it need to do? What are you trying to find?
And what are you going to do with the information?
Right.
That's an important one too, because that helps us reverse engineer in our brain and say, oh, well, this one here does the exact same thing. Yeah. Or let me tweak this one and then it'll give you what you need.
There's been several reports in the last year that I wasn't even sure if they could be done, but I did a lot of research, and it's so much fun to build those reports and see what's possible. There's a lot of information you can get that you may be surprised at. So if you have a question, you're wondering, could I collect this information? There probably is a way to get it.
It doesn't hurt to ask. We're not going to think it's not a stupid question. Ask, because if it's something that I've always wanted to know this, ask.
I would tell you that Mary Beth and I and Michael have learned about Koha the hard way. A lot of self-training and digging in. Yeah.
We've learned about it the hard way, so hopefully you don't have to.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.